Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to untangle some threads in the world of AI, tech, and space exploration. It's a wild mix, right? Financial news, tech announcements, even some NASA stuff. It's going to be a ride.
It really is. I mean, it's fascinating to see how everything's like colliding. Politics, investment, technology, and even space exploration are all tangled up together. It's a pretty dynamic landscape.
It's a lot to keep up with. Let's jump right in. First up, the UK is making a play for a trade deal with the US that's heavily focused on tech, specifically AI. What's their game plan here?
Well, they're basically trying to position themselves as like the US's best friend in the AI world. They're offering up the possibility of a less regulated environment, especially for data centers. And that's something U.S. tech companies, especially the big ones facing all those regulations at home, are really keen on.
It's a clever move, considering how companies like Microsoft and Amazon are caught between EU regulations in Europe and the US, trying to maintain its lead in AI. The UK's offer of a friendlier environment in the same region has got to be tempting for them. But there's that whole AI diffusion rule thing, right? That adds another layer of complexity to the situation.
Yeah, exactly. That rule is basically like a system for controlling who gets access to those super advanced AI chips. The UK, being a close ally, would likely get pretty easy access. That's a win for them, but a bit of a dilemma for the U.S.
So it's a balancing act for the U.S., right? They want to control who gets their hands on this powerful tech, but clamping down too hard could backfire. Limiting access for allies like the UK might slow down innovation and collaboration.
Absolutely. I mean, look at Microsoft. They've been pretty vocal about their concerns. They're saying this rule could really hurt U.S. allies by cutting them off from crucial technology.
Right. Trying to maintain control without stifling progress, a classic dilemma. But speaking of progress, NVIDIA just threw a curveball at everyone who thought the demand for AI chips was slowing down. Their latest report suggests a big shift toward those really intense reasoning models, like DeepSeek. What does this mean for the average person?
Basically, get ready for those AI tools you use every day to get a whole lot smarter. These reasoning models are a huge leap forward. They can actually understand and respond to way more complex requests. As these models become more common, the demand for AI hardware is going to skyrocket.
So NVIDIA is basically saying, buckle up, the AI revolution's just getting started. But this whole revolution isn't just about the tech itself, is it? There's a human cost, too, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the tough part. I mean, look at HP. They just announced more job cuts, saying they need to restructure their supply chain and focus more on AI. It's a reminder that as AI gets more sophisticated, some jobs and even whole industries are going to be disrupted.
It's not just job losses either. The CEO of HP hinted that they might rethink their manufacturing options, maybe even bringing some production back to the U.S. It makes you wonder if this AI boom could actually lead to more companies bringing jobs back home.
That's a really interesting question. As companies try to optimize their supply chains and use AI-powered automation, we could definitely see a shift towards bringing production closer to home. It's another ripple effect of this massive technological wave we're riding.
So we've got geopolitical maneuvering, companies reinventing themselves, and the potential for big changes in the job market. A lot to unpack, right? And we're just getting started. Next, we'll dig into how companies are scrambling to pay for this whole incredibly expensive AI explosion. So when we talk about the financial side of this AI boom, what kind of scale are we actually talking about?
It's massive. We're talking billions, trillions, maybe even more. Like, Meta. They're apparently working on a deal with Apollo Global Management, some kind of financing package, to build out their data centers in the U.S. It could be worth billions.
Billions. Wow, it's kind of mind-blowing, right? These companies are betting big on AI, even with everything going on. You know, the economy, regulators breathing down their necks.
Yeah, it's a high-risk, high-reward situation for sure. And this Meta deal, that's just one example, right? Companies are starting to realize that the old ways of financing stuff, they might not cut it anymore. This whole AI thing is just so different. The demand for data centers, the hardware, the energy to power it all, it's pushing the limits of how we've always done things.
So it's not just about making the AI, it's about building a whole new, digital world around it with its own infrastructure, its own financial rules, right? What are some of the new ways companies are finding to pay for all this?
Well, we're seeing more partnerships like this Meta and Apollo thing where private equity firms come in with a ton of money. There's also this growing interest in those, what are they called, REITs, but specifically for data centers. It's basically a way for investors to get a piece of the action.
Sounds like a gold rush, everyone rushing in to get their hands on AI. But let's not forget about the actual tech itself. And when it comes to pushing boundaries, nothing quite captures the imagination like quantum computing. Rigetti Computing teaming up with Quanta Computer to bring superconducting quantum computers to market. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think what's interesting there is how committed quantum computer seems to be. They're putting serious money behind this, which shows they really believe in quantum computing's potential.
I feel like we've been hearing about quantum computing forever, always just around the corner. Is this the moment it finally breaks through, from theory to reality?
There's definitely been a lot of progress, but there are still challenges, like error correction. Quantum computers, they're incredibly sensitive to any kind of interference, which can really mess up the calculations.
Right, and that's where Amazon's announcement of a new error correction method comes in, right?
Yeah.
They're saying it could be a game changer for reliability.
Absolutely. Error correction. That's the key to unlocking the true power of quantum computing. And what Amazon's doing, along with others, shows just how much effort is going into making this tech more robust, ready for the real world.
Maybe we're not all going to have quantum computers on our desks tomorrow, but it feels like things are moving in the right direction. And speaking of pushing boundaries, let's turn our attention to the final frontier, space.
Ah, yes, space. Always a good topic. NASA's got 2 new missions that are pretty exciting. First, there's SphereX, which is going to create a 3D map of the entire universe, looking for, get this, the building blocks of life.
Wow, it's amazing that we even have the technology to do that, right? To search for the molecules that might have started life itself. It's like looking back to the very beginning of, everything.
It really is incredible. And then there's Firefly Aerospace. They're going to try to land on the moon. It's a private company, but they're working with NASA to deliver scientific instruments and experiments to the lunar surface.
So we've got one mission searching for the origins of life, and another one expanding our presence on the moon. It's like science fiction becoming reality right before our eyes.
It really is a remarkable time. We're seeing this incredible acceleration of technology, driven by AI, global investment, and our never-ending desire to explore. It's pretty exciting.
It's a lot to take in, that's for sure. I think what really strikes me is, it really is, it's almost overwhelming, right? Like, where does it all lead? What does this mean for us, for humanity?
Big questions, right? And it's impossible to predict the future, of course, but we can look for, for trends, for signs of where things might be going. And one thing that's pretty clear is how these different areas are all starting to blend together. You've got AI influencing space exploration, quantum computing, changing how we think about finance, and then you've got geopolitics shaping everything.
Yeah, it's like they're feeding off each other, right? Pushing each other forward faster and faster. And that kind of brings up another thought. How do we, keep up? How do we even understand this world that's getting more and more complex?
I think that's where critical thinking comes in. It's not enough to just know about this stuff. We've got to really understand it. The implications, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And that means asking hard questions, challenging what we think we know, and trying to see things from different perspectives.
It's like we need a whole new way of thinking, a new way of, interacting with all this tech.
Exactly. And it's not just about the tech itself. It's about the ethics, the social impact. Like with AI getting smarter all the time, how do we make sure it's fair? How do we prevent bias? How do we protect our privacy when data is becoming so valuable? These are big questions we need to be asking ourselves.
It's like we need, I don't know, a new set of rules for the age of AI.
Yeah.
A way to make sure we use it for good and avoid the potential downsides.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
And that's where you come in, the listener. As we've been talking about all this, what's resonated with you? What questions do you have? Because in the end, it's the choices we make, both individually and as a society, that will determine how this all plays out.
We've given you a lot to think about today. We've talked about the race for AI dominance, the potential of quantum computing, the incredible things happening in space exploration. But the conversation doesn't end here. Take what you've learned, explore the things that interest you, and keep asking those tough questions. Because the future isn't something that just happens, it's something we create.